A verbal warning from a British Navy ship.
Earlier, Iranian President Hassan Rouhani warned the British government they would face repercussions for the seizure of an Iranian oil tanker.
We tell the British that your action is very preposterous, wrong, and is a mistake, and it will harm you. The British started insecurity on the seas and all that comes after it. They will be directly accountable for it.
Gibraltar seized the oil tanker with the help of the British Royal Marines last week. Officials in Gibraltar, a British territory off the southern tip of Spain, said they had reason to believe that tanker was carrying oil to a Syrian refinery in violation of European Union sanctions.
Fox's Allison Barber. Residents along the northern Gulf Coast of Mexico getting ready for a forecasted hurricane. Storm systems already causing flooding in New Orleans.
We're just completely stranded here. I mean, we came down and this happened all within a matter of hours, and now no one can get anywhere. They've shut down all public transportation. There's just disabled cars all over the road. It's like a hurricane. It's like actually like a hurricane.
Louisiana Governor John Bel Edwards has declared a state of emergency ahead of what forecasters say will become Tropical Storm Barry by Thursday and may become Hurricane Barry before making landfall this weekend. The storm may become a major flooding event over the northern Gulf Coast and lower Mississippi Valley. And stocks rose Wednesday as investors welcome new signals. The Federal Reserve is ready to cut interest rates. The Dow gained 76 points. The Nasdaq climbed 60 points to a record. This is Fox News.
Half a day, this is Congressman Nicholas. Our office is currently visiting our villages, providing contact information for our office and taking any inquiries we may be of service with. All vehicles and staff are appropriately identified for your safety. Please feel free to let our constituent outreach team know how we can be of service to you, and thank you for your kindness.
This ad was paid for with official funds from the office of Congressman Michael F.Q. San Nicolas.
65 years ago, Bank Pacific opened its doors to our community. As we celebrate, we offer you a special 65th anniversary personal loan rate for as low as 4.65% for travel, back to school, a wedding. Do whatever you want with the money. During July, we just want to give it to you for as low as 4.65% APR. It's our birthday present to you.
Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal opportunity lender, member FDIC, conditions apply.
A congresswoman is distancing herself from hedge fund manager and accused sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein.
She received the maximum donation from him in each of the last two campaigns. And now Democratic Congresswoman Stacey Plaskett of the U.S. Virgin Islands is giving away the contributions from Jeffrey Epstein. Following public outcry, the money will be donated to the Women's Coalition and the Family Resource Center. The former hedge fund manager owns a private island in Plaskett's district. Epstein, a staunch financial donor to many Democrats, is being held without bail, accused of child sex trafficking. He's pleaded not guilty. The Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee returned $10,000 from Epstein last fall. Kevin Battle, Fox News.
Racetrack officials are putting extra protections in place for horses in this year's Breeders' Cup.
The Breeders' Cup announcing that when they run in November at Santa Anita Park, there will be more veterinarians on the staff than ever at the historic Southern California track. Execs for the World Championships announcing that besides 14 vets on site during Breeders' Cup week, another 20 will be on hand for 2 days of racing on November 1st and 2nd. Santa Anita is still slated to host for a record 10th time despite several questions regarding the most recent season there, with 30 horses dying during that meet between late December and mid-June. Racing at Santa Anita resumes on September 25th. Matt Napolitano, Fox News.
Developments in the search for a missing Kentucky woman. State police say they found human remains on the property connected to the search for Savannah Spurlock. Troopers say they sent the remains to medical examiners for identification. The 23-year-old woman was last seen January 4th as she left a bar in Lexington with a group of men. And a Georgia father drowned in Florida Tuesday after saving his 8-year-old daughter from a riptide. Deputies on Captiva Island, west of Fort Myers, identify the father as Thomas Zakruski. The Coast Guard found his body a few hours after the incident. I'm Carmen Roberts. This is Fox News.
Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro brings you island hospitality with a true taste of modern Chamorro cuisine. A bistro look that feels like home. Their menu features local and traditional flavors with a twist. From their famous Calaguan Hafa to fresh ahi poke salad and their award-winning barbecue ribs. Mezcla takes your favorite local dishes and serves them with extra flair that you'll only find at Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Stop by their newest location in the Grand Plaza Hotel in Tumon. For reservations, call 969-2652. Mezcla, a true taste of Guam. We know too well the inconvenience of not having power after a storm. You worry about the food in the freezer going bad. Nights get hot. It's hard finding comfort when going to sleep. These are realities. But with solar and battery storage from Micronesia Renewable Energy, these realities can be a thing of the past. The solar works during the day and the batteries power your home at night. Call 632-2613 to see how solar plus battery storage can make life a little more convenient. MRE, the smarter choice.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And believe it or not, that is not exactly the minority opinion nowadays, and I think that we could probably figure out the reason why. I have an article here from Bearing Arms again today, and it's titled, Recent Poll Suggests Gun Control Not Nearly as Popular as Claimed. You know, by the time I'm finished with this, I think the real Joe Cruz and I are going to know exactly why gun control's not all that popular. Ever since the massacre at Marjorie Stoneham Douglas High School, we've heard plenty about how the public supports gun control. In some people's minds, that's the important thing. Who cares about rights if the majority doesn't like that right? However, there's now some evidence to suggest that the, quote, majority isn't nearly as big as the media has been claiming. Besides Vox, Morning Consult's own summary of the poll emphasized the gun issue as a campaign priority, as climate change, gun policy, and recent state abortion legislation top Democrat voters' list of topics they want to hear during the debates. Well, if you want to hear about those things, stay tuned. You're going to get an earful here, right here on Tall Tales. 62% of self-identified Democrat voters said that it was very important that gun issues be discussed, ranking gun policy second among the 17 named issues overall and statistically tied with climate change and abortion for top slot. Not a big surprise, really, but also as not as monolithic a response as it might appear for two reasons. First, a substantial split between the hyper-left Democratic core and more moderate elements of the party. And second, counterbalancing attitudes from Republican and independent voters. 72% of, quote, strong Democrats called the gun policy discussion very important compared to 47% of, quote, not very strong. That is, soft Democrats, and 60% of all those who indicated they were likely to vote Democrat in the Democrat primary or caucus. Those polls are split significantly. Additionally, urbanites were significantly more likely to agree with the, quote, very important label than were suburbanites, 43%, and those living in rural areas, 38%. In terms of religious differences, non-Christians were significantly more likely to call guns a very important issue than were Christians, agnostics, or atheists. Homemakers, students, and the unemployed tended to consider gun policy discussion very important, while employed workers were less inclined to do so. But not all differences between those groups were significant. Similarly, Generation X, or post-millennial voters, were more likely than their millennial, Generation X, or boomer peers to rate gun control a very important topic. They didn't say anything about my generation, Real Joe Cruz.
Which generation is that, sir?
That'd be the greatest generation.
I believe you're right, sir.
Yeah. Not just because I'm in it either. In other words, all Democrat voters aren't nearly as rabidly anti-gun as we've been told. Interesting. So I decided to look a little deeper into the report. When asked who they trusted more with the issue of guns, 41% of registered voters said they trusted Republicans to handle it, compared to 40% siding with Democrats on the issue. As Republicans are seen as the pro-gun party, that's telling. The two groups are in a virtual dead heat. Additionally, only 35% of all registered voters think gun control should be a priority. That's just over a third, which accounts for most of the Democrats and a small handful of independents who likely lean Democrat on a handful of issues such as guns. The poll suggests that the anti-gun rhetoric coming out of the Democrats isn't the winning strategy they think it is. As it is, the candidate running exclusively on gun control, do you know who that was, Real Joe Cruz?
Hillary Clinton?
Eric Swalwell.
Okay.
Yeah. Had to withdraw from the primary. So it's not like Democrats are exclusively focused on gun control. From what it looks like, the best case scenario is for candidates to keep prattling about gun control for as long as they can. Democrats are pretty good at prattling. Then get trounced in the 2020 elections, as this applies not just to presidential races, but Congress, also Congress. Imagine the consternation on the faces of Democrats when they lose the House after only 2 years of control, all because they kept pushing gun control. Now, gun control not being a priority doesn't mean it doesn't have support. What it does mean is that Democrats are going to have to woo voters with more than claims than they'll rid the world of crime because they passed gun control. They'll have to win on other issues, and it remains to be seen if they can. So the import of this column is that the idea of gun control is not as popular amongst the folks as Democrats and others might have thought. I'll give you a reason that it's not all that popular, Real Joe Cruz. Tall tales.
I knew it.
Yeah, it's the reach of tall tales out there to our international radio listening audience, with a daily recital of the Second Amendment and the piercing commentary on the Second Amendment, those who would destroy it, those who would support it, etc. So even probably die-hard gun control fanatics, after a little exposure to tall tales, walked away shaking their heads and saying, I'm not so sure about that gun control anymore. Maybe it's not such a good idea after all. So just one more example of the power of tall tales. Okay, let's see, how much time have I got to pat myself on the back before the next break, Real Joe Cruz?
Oh, you have 25, 30 minutes.
Well, that's plenty. That's just about enough time.
You have all the time you need, sir.
I don't know about
Pat away.
that. I don't know about that. That would require a significant. It's only a 2-hour program, Real Joe Cruz. You know how proud I am of my humility. So let's put the back slapping, back patting aside for the moment and go to Jemmy Ikotny. Jemmy Ikotny, Press the Meat, our backwards bilingual play on words that means we are about to embark on the Tall Tales version of Meet the Press. I sit right here armed with my ferocious blue pencil with which I go through the editorials of the two daily newspapers, going through them with a fine-tooth comb, searching out grammatical errors and errors in the usage of the English language, finding them and trumpeting their existence to the entire international radio listening audience, analyzing the editorials for factual accuracy, for the soundness of the ideas presented, and for the readability of the editorial. Is it edgy? Is it topical? Does it make me think about something that I ought to be thinking about? Can I sink my intellectual teeth into it? And the editorial coming up on the better end of that comparison will be awarded the coveted Blue Star. And as I've mentioned before, careers have been broken. Success has been made and won based on the awarding of the coveted Blue Star, but I'm going to assure you right now, there's no such thing as an inside job in the awarding of the Blue Star. There's no such thing as outside influence at all here. It's a fair game across the board. And when I do award the coveted Blue Star, I can only imagine, if we could only do a remote from the editorial boardrooms of both papers so we could capture on video the joy that must pervade the editorial boardroom of the winning paper for that day.
And the sorrows of the other paper.
And the sorrow of the losers. The agony of defeat. Yeah. And I've mentioned to you before, depending on where you're located, if you're in Tamuning near the Post or in Nagalia near the Daily News, when that coveted Blue Star announcement is made, sometimes you could hear the champagne corks popping while you're out on the street. There will be no champagne corks today for the Daily News because they've done it again. Yeah, I think they've done their one editorial for the week. Instead of writing editorials about Guam and about the issues that we really care about, the Daily News editorial page has become a bulletin board for anti-Trump tripe from USA Today, the Gannett News Service, you name it. And here it is today. It doesn't bash Trump, so I don't know how it got in here, but it's certainly not a local editorial. It's by Glenn Harlan Reynolds, who is a member of the, what do they call it? The USA Today Board of Contributors. This must be a bunch of minimum wage dudes. They just want to see their names in the paper, so they write these things for USA Today, hoping that somehow they could become famous by being in USA Today. Actually, they'd be better off hiring a few graffiti artists to go around and print their names or paint their names on the restroom walls of several popular bars. They'd probably get more out of it than being posted in USA Today. So today, the editorial is Dems face good Trump economy. So, yeah, that's true. But I can get information like that in a million places. All I got to do is turn on my iPad, and I can get that kind of editorial comment from a million places. But there are only a couple of places that I can get local comment on local people, local issues, what's important to the folks of Guam. Of course, the easiest one and the best one is for me just to talk to myself, which I do from time to time. It's always nice to have a really receptive audience, Real Joe Cruz. Not that you're not a receptive audience. Okay, so here's the editorial from the Post. Prison guards accused of smuggling drugs are not worthy of generous deals. Our justice system sent another message about being soft on crime via plea deals that would reduce or have reduced charges to nothing but misdemeanors against several former corrections officers arrested and charged for their roles in smuggling meth and other contraband into the island's prison. They had faced felony charges following their arrest. Many on island remember when the prison smuggling ring was busted in 2017. Prior to the raids, the prison was in the middle of a smuggling crisis. In a year's span, dozens of incidents were logged at the prison with drugs, cell phones, and cigarettes in the hands of prisoners. Drugs were thrown over the fence into the prison grounds. A food vendor's van and a Department of Corrections van to transport prisoners and detainees to their court hearings were also allegedly used. Even the transportation of prisoners who needed to get care at Guam Memorial was exploited in an attempt to smuggle drugs into the prison facility. All told, 6 Department of Corrections officers were indicted in September 2017 in connection with a scheme to bring meth, cell phones, and other contraband into the Manila prison, including 2 maximum security inmates. The Medina Drug Task Force, with the help of other law enforcement agencies, swooped down on the alleged co-actors of the prison smuggling ring. Among those arrested were former prison lieutenant Jeffrey Limo, who was at one time the head of internal affairs at the island's corrections department. But Limo and the rest of the DOC guards who were charged have struck plea deals with the prosecution. Unless the judge tosses out the soft plea deals and tells the prosecution and defense to come up with something better for the public, then the efforts to bust the drug smuggling ring in our prison will have gone to waste, and the justice system will be sending a message to future drug smugglers that they're going to get off with a slap on the wrist. You know, I guess if I were going to go into a little business, I'd set up shop down around the courthouse and sell these little shields that people put on their wrists. You know, so like if you had a sore, like a bracelet, if you have a sore wrist, it kind of immobilizes your wrist. It seemed like there'd be a heck of a demand, real demand for those kinds of things down at the at the court, because there seems to be so much wrist slapping going on down there. Superior Court Judge Anita Sokola, who doesn't shy away from sharp comments in her courtroom when she notices something awry, did say something at a hearing Tuesday for 2 of the prison guards striking deals. She noted in part to a defense attorney, "I just want you to know they're all going to get off on official misconduct. Limo would be pleading to official misconduct and everything will be dismissed. He will have to testify against your client and all the other co-actors." Former DOC officer Franklin Rosalind is getting a plea agreement, notwithstanding all the hoopla at DOC, to official misconduct. I believe those are all misdemeanors, from the serious felonies down to misdemeanors. IAG. Let me try that again. IAG. Yeah, said Sokola at Tuesday's hearing, perhaps voicing dismay over the level of plea deals the local attorney general's office has been agreeing to. Still, you'd think judges would draw the line somewhere so that criminals get some punishment other than a misdemeanor. In a misdemeanor, they could still be eligible to be employed in the government of Guam. Witness Ovita Nauta, who was a star employee at the Department of Corrections, according to former Director of Corrections Alberto Lamarena, after Nauta was caught red-handed stealing money from the police department, transferred to corrections, finally pled out, and was kept on the job. In a misdemeanor, they could still be eligible to be employed in the government of Guam. The public counts on judges to draw that line, that criminals need the appropriate punishment for their deeds, even taking into account the information they shared to bring their co-actors down with them. But then Sokola didn't toss the plea back to the prosecution and defense. In the Rosalind case, she said, "Okay, I'll give you a change of plea." No, Judge, that was not okay. Yeah. So Judge Sokola kind of laid it out there. I had some really interesting material here that I probably forgot to bring along today, dealing with the prisoner's dilemma. Yeah, sure enough. I was going to go into the kind of the science and art of plea bargaining here. The prisoner's dilemma goes something like this. I imagine two people, two sane, intelligent, independent people who have committed a crime. They're in custody. They can't communicate with each other. And they're offered a plea deal by the prosecution. If both the prosecution doesn't have enough evidence to get a major conviction on either one without the cooperation of the other, and certainly not on both of them. So the prosecution offers deals, and if both remain silent, then they're going to the maximum time they could do would be 1 year. If one rats out the other, then the one that gets ratted out upon will do 3 years, and the other one will do 2 years. If they rat out each other, same result. So the best thing they could do, if they were rational individuals, would be both keep quiet and neither one rat on the other one. But human nature being what it is, that isn't what happens in real life, because one of the prisoners will squeal on the other one to make a better deal for himself. So conventional wisdom holds that if several people are involved in a criminal activity, the first one to plead guilty will get the best deal because he has the most that he can give up on his co-conspirators. That isn't what happened here, though. The first guy who pled guilty has not been sentenced yet, but he pled guilty to a felony. He was first. Now, there's a story in today's Post, comments from the Attorney General saying sometimes we enter into plea agreements with criminal defendants because by getting their cooperation, we can go after, in effect, bigger fish. So in this particular case, this is just the art of what-ifing, right? In this particular case, one of the bigger fish had already agreed to cooperate. So he'll have to wonder what it is that the prosecution thinks it'll get out of all of the rest of them by letting them plead to misdemeanors. And of course, they have to agree to cooperate. Something else that happens in the criminal justice world is this. Let's say that the cops make a case against A and B for burglary, and they bring them in and question them, and A says, I'm not going to roll over on B, but I have something else that's really important. You remember that murder that happened 2 years ago that you guys were never able to solve? Well, if I tell you who did it, what kind of a deal can I get? So sometimes these serendipitous findings come up in the process of investigating crimes. So if that were the case, then if all you knew was what you read in the papers, it might look like, wow, A and B committed the same crime. A got off really easy, and B's going to have to go to trial and may spend a long time in jail. So it's the point I'm trying to make here is it's pretty hard to second guess the plea bargaining that the Attorney General does, just as though it's pretty hard to sit down and watch people play draw poker and watch them bet. And of course, you can't see their hands if they're playing draw poker, watching them bet and trying to figure out what it is that each of the poker player actually has in his hands. Because in poker, people do what? They bluff. So the whole criminal justice, criminal trial, plea bargaining setup, and I don't want to diminish the importance of it, but it has a high degree of gamesmanship involved. And trying to second guess the prosecutor is like trying to second guess that guy sitting to your right who just saw your bet and raised you another $500. Does he have the cards or is he bluffing? Let's take a short break and we'll come right back.
GPSI Guam is a professional services company that is a registered contractor for the federal government. They're an SBA, 8A, and Hub Zone certified SDVOSB, providing program/project management, administration, technical support, logistics, and commodities. Find out more about GPSI and how they can help you today. For large prime companies, contact GPSI if you need assistance in meeting your small business subcontracting goals at 477-3058. They'll be happy to assist.
Get a half-gallon of Minute Maid orange juice for only $1.99 when you fuel up on $35 or more of premium high-performance fuel. Conditions apply. See stores for details. Circle K. Take it easy. Get a half-gallon of Dairy Gold milk for only $1.99 when you fuel up on $35 or more of premium high-performance fuel. Conditions apply. See stores for details. Circle K. Take it easy. Get a $7 meal for only $1.99 when you fuel up on $35 or more of premium high-performance fuel. Conditions apply. See stores for details. Circle K. Take it easy.
Now, more Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie. Spitting truth like watermelon seeds at a summer picnic. Call now, 888-TALK, 888-8255.
Okay, so it's Blue Star time, and of course, once again, the Daily News didn't even suit up for the game. So it's not going to be that difficult for me to award the Blue Star. The Blue Star never goes by default. The winning newspaper has to at least make a colorable showing of a decent editorial, which the Post did today. They wrote a good editorial, and they gave us something we could sink our teeth into. And the final line, no judge, that was not okay, pretty edgy. So the coveted Blue Star once again goes to the Post. And that brings the Post's total up to 125. And the Daily News somehow got 43. Yeah, but it's been a while. All right, let's see who's calling in to congratulate me on the fine job that I did in judging the editorials. I guess that would be Kellis. Afternoon, Kellis.
Hey, Bob. When I was on hold just now, I couldn't hear what you were talking about. But I was wondering, did you talk about that guy that got 5 years for stealing parts off of Tacoma?
No, I didn't, but I can.
What I was figuring out is I think either this guy's lawyer had made a disservice to his client, because if he told the judge that the reason he was stealing the parts was so he could buy meth, so he could sell the meth, because he's a meth user and he needs to feed his children, I think he could have gotten off scot-free.
Just needs the right rap, right, Kellis?
Yeah, because you're talking about the guards that are bringing stuff into the prison, and we hear about all the time these guys that are selling meth that are released, and while they're on release, they get caught selling meth to be released again. And here's a guy who does this horrible crime of stealing parts off a abandoned Tacoma, and he gets 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah, a little disparate in sentencing, isn't it, Ken?
Yeah, that's why I'm saying if the guy said that he was doing it for meth, he would have been released.
Yeah.
So whoever his lawyer was, I think, should be filed, malpractice against him.
Ineffective assistance of counsel, right, Ken?
Yes, right there. Well, this is Kel. Ken's my brother.
Didn't I say Kellis?
Nope.
I said Ken? Well, okay. My bad, Kellis.
Leon Guerrero's.
All right.
The same, people tell me.
All right. I'm just waiting for the female that has the office downtown to give me a buzz, but she hasn't called yet.
She hasn't yet?
Not yet.
You know what? I will get Ken, and I will stop calling because I think you only have a certain amount of Leon Guerreros that are allowed to call your show, and she's waiting for us to stop.
Maybe that's it. But the Real Joe Cruz opens the Leon Guerrero line as soon as we put the program up on the air. So that could be it, yeah, Kellis.
Well, I'm hoping, but but she's worried about the fern tree and everything else. So I'm a little and the military buildup, because we do not need 150 officers. We need people to just observe the buildup.
Well, she's come out and said she's for independence. She wants to go to the United Nations and sit down across the table from the United States and negotiate.
Well, you know what? No one asked me. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Because I'm for the status quo. Because if we go independent, there's a high probability I see a lot of people actually moving off of Guam. I could be wrong.
I think you're probably right, Ken. I mean, Kellis. I did it again.
I got to get going, though.
Okay, Kellis. Thanks for calling.
Have a good one. Peace. Bye.
All right, so that was Kellis, not Ken. But you did open the Leon Guerrero line. Is the Tom line open?
Tom lines are open. The Leon Guerrero lines are open.
I suppose you probably got to open the Jimmy line, too.
I gotta open the Jimmy lines.
Okay. Okay, so I gave the coveted blue star to the Post today, and now I go to the card, and I've got an item from the card that I had yesterday, and that's the National Guard versus kids. FBI arrests Guam guardsman in connection with child pornography. And this is the one where the adjutant general really gets up on her high horse and says, we just don't tolerate that kind of stuff in the National Guard. Let me see if I can find the exact quote. Now, I can't find the exact quote, but that's basically what she said. We don't tolerate that sort of thing in the National Guard. But she forgot to tell her public information officer, who made this ridiculous statement. A person is innocent until proved guilty, and the local case had not been resolved. So Guerrero remained employed with the Guard, Blas said. Another story says that he's still on the payroll at the Guam National Guard because the Guard really believes in innocent until proven guilty. And I saw on TV last night, I can't remember which station it was, where she said, well, it's innocent until proven guilty. It's in the Constitution. Of course, it's not. So, I got scratched my head a little bit, and the National Guard has its own version of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. It's in 10 GCA, and here's 10 GCA, section 637723.60. It's called General Article, and I'm just going to read subsection A. B and C are very similar. Though not specifically mentioned in this code, all violations of the criminal laws of the territory of Guam or the criminal laws of the federal government of the United States, of which person subject to this code may be guilty, shall be taken cognizance of by a general, special, or summary court-martial according to the nature and degree of the offense, and punishment shall, at the discretion of that court, be limited to the maximum punishment allowed for such crime or offense by the criminal statutes of said territory of the United States. Court-martial. And I went back and did a little research online, and this was in the news last year. You know, all of the news media covered it in some detail. So you'd have to have been living under a rock when all of this happened to not know about it. But the guard did nothing, and now that he's been arrested on his work site by the FBI, well, we're going to keep him on the job because he's innocent until proven guilty. If that's what you're going to do, then you ought to post a sentry at the gate, Esther Agagi, Adjutant General, and that sentry's duty ought to be to not allow any kids under 18 years old on that post, because they're all in danger, so long as Jerry Thomas is there, according to what I read here in the paper, even though you think he's innocent until proven guilty. All right, so there's that. I couldn't leave this one alone. I had to come back to it. Then we have Josh versus Jim. And after Josh versus Jim, we've got Jim versus them. So Jim Moylan introduced a bill, a proposal that would limit publicly funded travel. Now, I can't say that I'm opposed to that. I've gotten on the soapbox on that one more than once. As a general principle, my experience is that most of our problems occur here, and the solution lies right here. There are a few times when a few public officials might have to go off island, but darn few. So this story in the Post says that Moylan had introduced several proposed amendments to the government travel law, including eliminating government-funded travel for spouses of Government of Guam employees and ensuring per diem allowances apply across the board. Good idea. If we got to send a government employee somewhere, does his spouse have to go along? Isn't that kind of patriarchal? Doesn't that kind of go back to a time when we did stuff that we're not supposed to do anymore? You know, wasn't that statute enacted at the time that, well, you know, if the governor goes to Washington and goes to social events, shouldn't his wife be with him? Isn't that kind of the impetus there that you know, when the governor travels, his wife ought to come along with him? I suppose we'll get to the point where we have a female governor who has a wife, but maybe we can hold off for a couple of elections on that one. So now we have a governor and a husband. So when the governor goes somewhere, we have the opportunity to pay for her husband's travel expenses. I don't know, some of the trips that governors take, I don't even want to pay for the governor's expenses, much less the governor's spouse. And Moylan's bill would flatten out the per diem. Right now, some of the Manakilu get 130% of the per diem that the Manakpapa government employees would be entitled to, just because they're Manakilu. The bill also proposes other mandates intended to track and minimize government-funded travel. So if you get per diem, when you travel, you got to turn in chits to show how you spent your per diem. And if you didn't spend it all on allocable expenses, you got to give some of the per diem back. That's fair. Otherwise, you know, we're going to send people, give people per diem to go to Washington, D.C., where the per diem rates are based on a certain level of expense at staying at hotels. So when the government official gets there, he decides, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to stay 25 miles out of town and stay at Motel 6 and keep the money, keep the difference. I don't think anybody does that, but it shouldn't be possible. The law also allows government-funded travel to the spouse of the governor, the speaker of the legislature, and the chief justice of the Supreme Court, in addition to the spouse of any other employee as provided by regulations. Same argument. Moylan's proposal would cut all these authorizations except government-funded travel for the spouse of the governor. Well, it's better than nothing. As well as provisions that give additional per diem rates to the governor, the lieutenant governor, lawmakers, judges, mayors, executive or special assistants, Snow White, half the dwarfs, Goldilocks, and the Three Bears. Employees will also, as you were, conversely, department heads, boards, and commissions must determine if there can be alternatives to travel for training under the amended bill. Same is true for any travel for meetings. Now, the meetings are great things like this this conference of Pacific Island legislatures. It's a great boondoggle. You know, you get to go somewhere else, stay in a nice hotel for a few days, do a lot of cookie pushing, cocktail partying, cocktail parties, glad handing with folks from other islands, all at government expense, while you're drawing your pay, accomplishing absolutely nothing. The bill would require the creation of rules and regulations under each government branch to supplement the travel law. The objective is not to prevent travel in the public sector, but to assure it is within within justifiable reasons and costs, the bill states. So that's Moylan's bill. It's what we would call governmental reform. I'm for that. That's a good idea. Now, let's get the lieutenant governor's take on this. Now, this is a bill that applies across the board to everybody in the government. And here's our acting lieutenant governor, Joshua Tenorio, who knows a little bit about traveling. You know, he just went to the United Nations to spew an anti-U.S. rhetoric speech before the Fourth Committee. And he also favored the gay pride, the whole 5 days of the pride celebration with his presence, so he knows a little bit about travel himself. Acting Governor Josh Tenorio, in an interview with Patty Arroyo on News Talk 57. What's that, Real Joe Cruz?
I'm not sure. Never heard of it, sir.
Okay. Josh said the job of the administration is to represent Guam in international forums and to attend meetings if they are required to get additional funding for Guam. So it's the job of the administration to attend international forums. I don't think so. I read through the Organic Act, and I don't see that it's the governor's job to attend international fora. The plural of forum is fora. And I keep coming back to this old saw that I keep pulling back and forth across the log every day. This is what I want to see, Josh, and anybody else who's interested. I want to see an effective, efficient government that provides basic services in accordance with the rule of law on at least a break-even basis. That's what I want to see. I don't want to pay for people traipsing off to gay pride parades, to the United Nations, to lay out a rap of anti-American propaganda or any of these other things. Stay home and let's try to make this island the best place we possibly can to live. Now, if you want to go to these other places, fine, but do it on your own nickel. Don't do it on mine. And then Josh goes on to say, we're already isolated in Guam. How much more isolated do you want the island to be? I felt so much less isolated when I found that I paid Josh's way to the Pride events in New York. I was just like this, Real Joe Cruz. I was sitting there feeling, gosh, I'm so isolated. I'm so isolated. Oh, Joshua. Oh, wow. All of a sudden, I didn't feel as isolated anymore at all because he went to New York. How much more isolated do you want the island to be? We need to be able to bring in solutions and resources, so we need to be able to continue to do it. Yeah. Moylan has called for transparency with government travel law to ensure that every taxpayer dollar spent on government travel is justified and accounted for. I'll come back to this right after this short break.
Building a business is tough work. Big or small, Nanbo Insurance has your business covered. Nanbo takes the guesswork out of coverage to protect your investments. Over the years, Nanbo has worked with businesses of all sizes, from large hotels to small businesses. Nanbo Insurance will be your best asset. With Nanbo, you can also save big when you bundle up and insure your car, home, motorcycle, or business. Enjoy great savings, up to 50%. Visit nanbo.com or call 477-9754 for more details.
Business travel just got easier. Take your data plan with you for only $10 a day to all 17 Data2Go destinations. Never worry about additional data roaming charges when you go where your business needs you. The US, China, Thailand, and so much more. Have the assurance you need to check emails, surf the web, and stay connected. Call 688-2677 today to make sure your account is Data2Go ready. Docomo Pacific. Better together.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Okay, so here we are, back on the air here. I've got a little bit more beating up to do. A few more comments to make on the Lieutenant Governor's position, and then I'm going to turn the hose on Senator Moylan for a minute. But I'll entertain our Carl here for a minute. Good afternoon, Carl.
Hey, Bob. I won't take long because I know you don't have that much time until the top of the hour. But I just want to add a comment regarding the Lieutenant Governor's comment about being isolated and that being a bad thing. I kind of thought that was the whole idea, is to isolate the island and remain ethnically pure.
Good point. Yeah, that's a part of democracy, isn't it? Guamocracy.
Yeah, and I'd just like to leave this this mental picture because if we take what those that want to separate from America to its ultimate end, the utopia would have been if we never had any outside influence at all. There was not a single Spaniard that ever discovered the island. Not a single Japanese occupier, not a single American, no Germans, no Mexicans, no Filipinos, nothing. Where would we be? I wouldn't be alive. I wouldn't have even been conceived.
Which side of this argument are you on, Carl?
What's that?
Which side of this argument are you on? It sounds like you're talking in favor of it. Well, never mind. Go on.
No, I'm just proposing that, if ethnical or ethnic purification or purity is really the utopia, then that would be the ultimate utopia, is never to have had a single outside exposure to any outsiders, any settlers, any colonizers. Where would we be?
Let's take that thought and do a little reverse presentism. Presentism is the ability to look at past events and then measure them in light of today's ethical standards or moral standards.
Yeah.
So let's stop and think here. When the United States in 1898 took Guam as a prize of war, had we known then what we're supposed to know nowadays, what the United States should have done was as soon as the what was the name of Henry Glass's ship? I can't remember, but as soon as he'd reprovisioned his ship, he should have said, "You guys are now free from Spain, and we're leaving. we're abandoning any claim to sovereignty. Spanish sovereignty is over, so you got it, folks. How would that have worked? That would, if you go back from where we are now, that would have been the responsible thing for the United States to do, because that way the people living on Guam at that time, whoever they might have been, could have asserted and maintained their own sovereignty right on down to today. Correct?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Now, had the United States done that, what do you think the reaction in the international community would have been?
I think there would have been, well, maybe it would have been negative. They might have said, well, you're abandoning this island.
Yeah, to their own devices, poor people, you're abandoning them. That would have been one reaction. Another reaction would have come from the Northwest. Japanese boats would have been on the way in a heartbeat. Coming down, because in politics, in international politics, it's like nature. It abhors a vacuum. So you could bet that there would have been a red ball flying over the island rather quickly after the United States had sailed away. But that's a good point, Carl. If we're really looking for democracy, that would have been the ultimate, that there would have, that whoever arrived should have been persuaded, or perhaps in accordance with his own conscience, should have just sailed away and left the island alone, right?
Yeah. And since I've already interrupted your rhythm, I'll just leave with one thought, and you can comment on it because I'm curious what you say. Some people say that, if America wasn't here, that, the Japanese never would have come here, but I don't think that's true, because if you look at all the other islands that where the Japanese went to, and all the Asian nations, China and all the other places which you're more aware of than I am, they had nothing to do with the United States at all, and they were still invaded and conquered and taken over. But I'll let you comment on that, Bob. You know your history.
Yeah, well, actually, Carl, after the Japanese beat the Russians in the Russo-Japanese War in 1904, they decided they're going to be like the Western world. They're going to go out and grab their colonies too, and they did. They did exactly that. In 1914, they declared war on Germany so they could take over Micronesia and German New Guinea and a few other places like that. So I've made this argument before, had the United States not been an imperial country in 1898 and grabbed the Philippines, today, instead of speaking English, it would be "Watashi wa Nihongo wa wakarimasen," because we'd all be speaking Japanese, because the Japanese would have been in here, and perhaps there wouldn't have been a World War II if that had been the case.
Yeah, very true. Okay, Bob, thank you for allowing me to chime in and for elaborating. I appreciate it. I'll keep listening.
Okay, Carl. See you later.
Bye.
Okay, so I've still got more to do with Josh and Moylan, and it's like 2 minutes before the big halftime show, so I'm going to say hello, Jesse, but I will give you the opportunity to come back after the break if you so desire, but I do want to finish with Josh and Moylan after the break, and then I would entertain you. So what's your pleasure?
Oh, I guess I should just call back then later.
Okay. You just wait till I'm about done with Josh and Moylan, and then call back, and we'll entertain you then, okay?
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Josh, Jesse. Halftime show, marching bands, drill teams, cheerleaders, acrobats, fire eaters, sword swallowers, synchronized card section in the bleachers. I'm working on getting a blimp like the Goodyear blimp to fly over the field during the halftime show. Just worried, though, that the cannons might blow him out of the air, but it's just something to think about. So I'll see you right after the break.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Iran confronts a British ship. I'm Carmen Roberts, Fox News. The British government confirms just hours ago that 3 Iranian gunboats tried to block a British commercial ship from traveling through the Strait of Hormuz yesterday. A senior U.S. official elaborated on what happened, telling Fox News.
The British warship was 4 or 5 miles behind the British tanker, and the warship intercepted the Iranian boats, leveling its guns and threatening to open fire. Fox News is told the Iranian boats left the area immediately after, never firing any shots. A manned U.S. reconnaissance aircraft was flying overhead as well.
Fox's Ellison Barber. London issuing a statement urging Iran to de-escalate the situation in the region. Iran's Revolutionary Guard denies the allegations, saying if Tehran had ordered it to seize the ship, it would have done more than try. Labor Secretary Alexander Acosta says he's not resigning despite mounting criticism of his role in a 2008 sweetheart deal for sex offender Jeffrey Epstein.
If at some point the president decides that I am not the best person to do this job, I respect that. That is his choice. I serve at the pleasure of the president.
Democratic members of the House Oversight Committee want Acosta to explain his part in the plea deal. Chairman of the committee, Congressman Elijah Cummings, sent a letter to Acosta yesterday urging him to testify on July 23rd. Louisiana declares a state of emergency over a storm that's already flooded New Orleans and is expected to strengthen into Hurricane Barry before making landfall this weekend.
Locals are told to be ready for more than just water. A tornado has already been spotted near the University of New Orleans campus, a likely preview of what's to come in the next few days.
Fox's Charles Watson. A hurricane watch is in effect for southern Louisiana. This is Fox News.
Hoffaday, this is Congressman Nicholas. Our office is currently visiting our villages, providing contact information for our office and taking any inquiries we may be of service with. All vehicles and staff are appropriately identified for your safety. Please feel free to let our constituent outreach team know how we can be of service to you, and thank you for your kindness.
This ad was paid for with official funds from the office of Congressman Michael F.Q. San Nicolas.
It's important to have claims process that works for you. At Guahan Insurance Services, we make things simple and convenient. Same door you walk in to purchase your insurance is the same door you open to file your claim. We can't pretend that the car insurance claims process is fun, but we can promise a hassle-free and speedy recovery without any runarounds. For your home, auto, and business insurance, visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center on Marine Corps Drive in Tamuning. Don't forget to like us on Facebook or give us a call at 475-1162 or text 929-SAVE. That's 929-7283.
A state appeals court in Florida says the state's plan to regulate medical marijuana is constitutional.
A number of Florida officials have been trying as many legislative methods as they can to regulate or limit the number of medical marijuana treatment centers in the state, even though a state referendum to legalize medical marijuana was approved overwhelmingly by voters. The state's own First District Court of Appeals now says caps on the number of clinics and operational requirements violate that voter-driven amendment to the state constitution and must be struck. In Miami, Eben Brown, Fox News.
Police in Cleveland believe the discovery of 4 bodies is connected. Officers say that after finding one body shot to death in a vacant lot, the smell of smoke alerted them to a nearby house where they found the bodies of another adult, also fatally shot, and the bodies of 2 children who died of smoke inhalation. Suspect is in custody. The search for information about a teenager who went missing decades ago leads the Vatican to an unusual decision.
The Vatican has agreed to open 2 tombs in a cemetery on its grounds, allowing investigators to test the DNA of bones inside. It comes after the family of a girl who went missing in 1983 said they'd received an anonymous tip that Emanuela Orlandi might be buried at the cemetery. The case has become an enduring Vatican mystery, attracting various sensational theories, including rumours of links to a mobster and a papal assassination attempt. In London, Simon Owen, Fox News.
We now know the cause of that devastating fire at a Kentucky Jim Beam warehouse. It turns out it was lightning that sparked the inferno, which caused the bourbon to eventually leak into nearby waterways. The fire destroyed about 45,000 barrels of bourbon, and some of that booze made its way into the Kentucky and Ohio rivers, caused some fish kills. But Jim Beam is working on recovery. This is Fox News.
Mescla Chamorro Fusion Bistro brings you island hospitality with a true taste of modern Chamorro cuisine. A bistro look that feels like home. Their menu features local and traditional flavors with a twist. From their famous Kelaguen Hafa to fresh ahi poke salad and their award-winning barbecue ribs. Mescla takes your favorite local dishes and serves them with extra flair that you'll only find at Mescla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Stop by their newest location in the Grand Plaza Hotel in Tumon. For reservations, call 969-2652. Mescla, a true taste of Guam.
Liberate your mind with laughter. Budweiser presents Hypnosis Comedy coming to Guam Liberation Weekend.
Half a day, Guam. I am comedian hypnotist Rich Guzzi, and I can't wait to see you July 20th and 22nd at the Sheraton Laguna Hotel.
With local comedy legend Frank Rios opening the show. $25 general admission, $35 for VIPs. Tickets on sale at 76 Circle K stations and at Coffee Slut. Special thanks to Community First, the Guam Daily Post, Delta Tires, Trivision, and Choice Broadcasting.
You will have the time of your life.
Liberate Your Mind with Laughter is a GSPN production.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
So here we are, once again, a great halftime show here on Tall Tale. We do this every day at 1700 at 5 o'clock. It becomes more enjoyable each and every day as we watch it at the middle of the program. So having completed the big halftime show that we do every day, we are now in the second half of Tall Tales. At the halftime break, I was dealing with an item on the card called Josh Tenorio versus Jim Moylan. And it dealt with Jim Moylan's introduction of a bill which didn't sit very well with Lieutenant Governor Josh Tenorio. So I'll pick up where I left off. Senator James Moylan has called for transparency with the government travel law to ensure that every taxpayer dollar spent on government travel is justified and accounted for. Moylan introduced Bill 176-35 last week, which would modernize the government travel law to ensure that taxpayer-funded government travel is justified and establishes certain stringent provisions to the current government travel law. While the introduction of the bill, the question now arises: who gets to determine the amount of travel that gets done? Tenorio said, this is our acting governor right now, acting governor because the governor's traveling. To me, that's at the discretion of whoever the official is that's going on the trip. If that official is elected, then the people of Guam have an opportunity to decide whether they agree with that or they don't when elections come. Otherwise, go run for a governor yourself. Now, there's a real populist if I ever saw one. Yeah, and if you don't have enough bread to eat out there, if your folks are really hungry and you don't have enough bread, go over to the bakery and get yourself some cake. Yeah, because it's up to the government. If the official is elected, he can travel any damn time he wants to, and he can go anywhere he wants to. And if you don't like the way I almost said he, real Joe Cruz, if you don't like the way they are doing it, you have two choices. You can vote against them, or you can run for governor yourself. Now, maybe I missed a part of civics class, but I thought we had a three-branch government, and the one branch was called the legislature, and the legislature was the one that makes the laws. So if you want to be in the lawmaking business, you don't run for governor, you run for senator. And so long as what you do as a senator, so long as the bills that you introduce are properly within the jurisdiction of the legislature, you can introduce any doggone bill you want to. You could, a senator could introduce a bill that says nobody gets to travel on the government's nickel, period. And if he could find 9 other senators to go along with him, even if Josh Tenorio didn't like it, it would become law. So let me just repeat this for emphasis here on, the spirit of a true Democrat with a small d. To me, a question, who gets to travel? To me, that's at the discretion of whoever the official is that's going on the trip. If that official is elected, then the people of Guam have an opportunity to decide whether they agree with that or they don't when the elections come. Otherwise, go run for governor yourself. Yeah. Who was it? Commodore Vanderbilt, when someone mentioned to him that, this might not sit well with the public, his response was, "The public be damned." So maybe you could translate that into Latin, Josh, and make it part of your Josh Tenorio coat of arms. The public be damned. If they don't like the traveling that I'm doing, then they can vote against me, or else they can run for governor themselves. Well, I don't like the traveling that you're doing, Josh. I'm not going to run for governor, and I'm not going to vote for you. And I'm not going to shut up either, because you're wasting my money. We picked this up the other day. For once, the real Joe Cruz and I didn't see eye to eye on that one. The real Joe Cruz said it was okay for Josh to head off to the United Nations and the Gay Pride Parade, because he likes to send people places. Right, real Joe Cruz?
It's my nickel.
It's your nickel. You can send him wherever you want. So you might be able to hustle up the real Joe Cruz's vote here, Josh, but with a performance like this, you're not going to get mine. That's for sure. Josh added that as long as there's transparency and accountability in travel, there would be no problem. See, if I wanted to go to the French Riviera for the Cannes Film Festival, because I'm a movie buff, as long as I were transparent, it's no problem. Not a problem at all. If I wanted to pack up and go to Disneyland for a week every month on government's nickel, so long as I told people I'm going to Disneyland, and I'm going to go to, I'm not going to go to Magic Mountain, I'm not going to go to Knott's, I'm only going to go to Disneyland, and I'm going to show you all my receipts. No problem. Tenorio said Governor Lulian Guerrero is currently attending the Micronesian leaders meeting in Chuuk. Now, are you sure the Jimmy line's open? Because I just said that I'm kind of like they're trolling for Jimmy, right? When
It's open.
When I said the word Chuuk, I expect to see that light start blinking right away.
Maybe someone stole his phone.
Maybe he's out of minutes. Tenorio said this meeting is important because it's an opportunity for all leaders in the region to gather and consult each other. Well, what are they going to consult each other about, Josh? To gather and consult each other. Must have gone to the same public relations school that Josephine Bloss went to. Next she could tell us that everybody's innocent until proven guilty. This is even more important now with the increased tension that the compact nations have been getting from the United States. Okay, so if the compact nations are having tension with the United States, and we want to have tension with the United States because Josh has asked the Fourth Committee to put pressure on the United States, how could the governor conspire for Guam for Gwexit if she doesn't go down to this conference in Truk and stir up miscontent amongst those nations? I hadn't thought of it that way, Josh, but I guess you make a pretty good point. I'll read it again. This is even more important now with the increased tension that compact nations have been getting from the United States. The United States is putting more tension on them. And of course, Guam has its own compact-related problems. And this would be a perfect forum to air those concerns. This would almost be a home run for Moylan, except for the next item on the card, which is Jim versus them. And, you know, I look at Moylan's bills and some other people's bills, and if you want to, you could do this. You could add a section to the end of your bills and call it, you know, section whatever, and say, an amateur wrote this bill for me. You get the same effect by putting a section in there that said, this bill is effective upon adoption. Just go to Title I of the Government Code, and you'll find that very same thing. Okay, well, I'm going to hang on to this because I see a really important caller calling in here. I'm going to come back to why Jim Moylan didn't hit a home run in just a second. I noticed the other phone's ringing too, Real Joe Cruz. Good afternoon, Dr. Poole.
Judge, thank you for taking my call. Sir, first, I feel sorry for you. You sound like you've been smoking cheap cigars or something. Poor thing, you should probably be home in bed.
Yeah, I probably should, but, you know, Doc, the show must go on.
Yes, sir. Well, I'm proud of you for being there. You know, whenever I find myself disagreeing with you, I always have to check six because I've usually misunderstood something or because you just always get it right. But I'm thinking this time I might have to side with Real Joe because I'm not sure I understand your alternative. It sounds, you know, what the lieutenant governor is saying, I think I sort of agree in that I don't really want, I'm not sure who should approve his travel or the governor's travel. I think we do maybe just have to trust their good judgment and vote against them when we find that judgment lacking. But could you tell me what is it that you would propose? What sort of oversight over this travel, if not trusting the governor to make her own decisions? Who would do that?
Well, perhaps I didn't state my point clearly, but what I'm saying is that Josh is not in a position to make the statements that he is that are borderline provocative when he has wasted so much money himself.
I see. Well,
and again, he says, to me, it's at the discretion of whoever the official is going on the trip. In other words, I can do what the hell ever I want. So be quiet out there in the peanut gallery, and if you don't like it, you can run for your governor yourself. And then he went on to say, they didn't pick this up, I've got more to tell you, but I've got to go off on another junket, so I got to go home and pack.
Well, in the first place, Judge, you and I are the only people old enough to remember what the peanut gallery was. So that reference was lost on everyone else.
Yeah, well, people who are patrons of the arts still remember Howdy Doody, Doc.
Buffalo Bob. Well, the thing I would say now, I'm a government official too, but I'm way down at the other end of the feed trough, and so there's lots of people overlooking any travel that I try to make. But I would sort of think that when you get to the governor, lieutenant governor level, I'm not sure who else would or should have oversight. And I guess that's the point that I'm fishing at.
Yeah, well, I'm not arguing in favor of oversight. What I am pointing out here is that the fact that you can do it doesn't mean that you should.
Okay, that point's well taken.
Yeah, and if you've decided that because you can do it, you're going to do it whether or not you should, try not to rub the public's nose in it, because that's exactly what he's doing.
Judge, thank you very much. I hope you feel better.
Well, my cough is actually getting better, Doc, because I've been practicing a lot.
Okay. All right, thanks very much, Judge.
Okay, good talking to you, Dr. Poole.
Yes, sir. Bye now.
Yeah, that's Dr. Poole. You used to think his name was Tool. Remember that, real Joe Cruz?
Yeah, he's not a tool at all.
No, he is a pool of knowledge. Yeah. Okay, let me go from there to Jesse. Thanks for being patient, and I've still got a little bit more to do with Josh here, but I don't want to keep you waiting any longer.
Oh, okay. Well, I just wanted to chime in on the about a little bit about the independence.
Okay.
Yeah. So I just been reading up a lot on it, and there's quite a lot of history that went into the Philippines and Puerto Rico and basically all the territories that Spain ceded to the United States. And the one thing I guess that I would want to know is on the in the treaty on Article 9, there's just a lot of things that are said in the Treaty of Paris. And one of those things was on Article 9 says the civil rights and political status of native inhabitants of the territories hereby ceded to the United States shall be determined by the Congress.
Okay, I'm quite familiar with that. I'm quite familiar with what it means, and so. And then. You want to just stop there? You want to stop there and pick that up?
That was the basis of a lot of it, and then the one thing that I found really interesting about this whole independence, especially about the independence of the Philippines. Okay, so it took about almost 45 years till that happened. And through those years, there was a lot of politics being done between just the representatives that were sent to the U.S. Congress, right? And then obviously Manuel Quezon was really instrumental in getting the independence for the Philippines. And I just found it very interesting how he had to navigate through all that political and play those games and get on people's sides, and then he just kept changing back and forth, and it's a really interesting thing. And the first two people that actually got sent to Washington to, as a lobby for the Filipinos at the time in the 1900s, one of them actually got exiled to Guam, right? And then after he got exiled to Guam, because he was the chief of staff or one of the chief information officers for Aguinaldo, who declared war against.
It would be Aguinaldo.
Aguinaldo, yes. So Ocampo shares some history of Guam as he got exiled here, and he was the guy that they were supposed to build a statue and put it in Asin, but the villagers didn't want that statue there. But that would have been good to put the statue there, because then people can start looking into the history of Ocampo and then see that he got elected into Congress to actually serve, So they're just, if people want to look at it and if people want to check into independence, you can look online and just look for those things. And then also
Jesse, I would have never dreamed of doing any of these things myself had you not mentioned it just right now.
Yeah. So
I'm being sarcastic, Jesse, in case you can't tell.
Yeah, but I'm just, for the listeners who don't, I'm just trying to state why this is not, and the crazy part about all this was none of this was anti-American. Kazan actually worked with the Americans, and at the time the Americans wanted to work with him.
I don't think you were listening the day that I read parts of Manuel Quezon's famous speech.
Yeah, obviously I wasn't listening.
When Manuel
talking about it now.
When Manuel Quezon made a speech at in Manila that was quoted around the world for a long, long time. Manuel Quezon said, "Better a Philippines run like hell by Filipinos than run like heaven by Americans." Now, that's quite a quote, right? Now, you want to know the rest of the story, or are you too impatient?
No, I mean, I can...
Okay, here's the rest of the story. Okay, then Quezon went on to contrast how the American government had functioned under governors general, etc., and how it was functioning under him as the president of the Commonwealth of the Philippines.
Yes.
So the Commonwealth of the Philippines was actually an American territory.
Yes. Yep. That's correct.
When he said that. Now, most people don't read that far into it.
Great.
So as far as the civil rights and political status, the United States did that, Jesse.
Yes, and they did, and that's what I'm saying. What I was going to get at was that you're saying, oh, we never tried to decolonize and stuff like that, right? And in a way, Robert Underwood was our representative. Ben Blas was, those guys kind of, they were trying to push the issue, but I guess they just didn't have for whatever reason, just didn't have the friends Manuel Quezon did, or the timing. I don't know, but
the desire. They didn't have the desire. They didn't want to, Jesse. You have to face up to that.
Didn't want to?
Neither Ben Blas or Robert Underwood.
Well, Robert Underwood did make statements to the in the United Nations in I think year 2000 or 2001, and he did speak about it, about self-governance.
Yeah, I've made speeches to the Chamber of Commerce too, but making speeches that's not that hard.
I don't know if I'm okay. Let's just put Underwood. I'm just saying that moving forward, who will be that guy for Guam to? I'm just saying that there has to be a lot of work to be done, and right now our congressman, I don't even think he's close to even doing that. So, but at the end of the day, the United States still has to honor that. I believe they still have to honor the treaty that Spain made.
Which treaty?
You said it right there. The Treaty of Paris.
The United States has honored, has lived up to its treaty obligations. It has determined the civil rights and political status of the people of Guam. It did that.
But where? No, they haven't, because
What is the political status of the people of Guam?
It's still status quo.
No, Jesse.
Yeah.
It is a political status. The Treaty of Paris doesn't say the United States shall determine the political status in a manner satisfactory to Jesse Limtiaco. It just says determine the political status. And also the other, what was the political status? And I can't remember. I'm not looking at it right now. But the United States did that.
I don't remember when they did that, but
You don't remember when the Organic Act was passed?
It does. That's beyond the. That's what I'm saying is the Organic Act is still. We still wasn't considered really a self-government.
It doesn't say self-government in the treaty, Jesse.
It says the civil rights and political status of the native inhabitants of the territories, shall be determined by Congress.
Okay, what are the civil rights of the native inhabitants, Jesse?
Okay, Congress determined what that would be, and that is the Organic Act, which can only be amended by Congress, which we don't have a representative in.
So what? Jesse?
We don't even have a senator in the United States.
Is that what the Treaty of Paris says? It says political status and civil rights. The United States did that. You may not like it, but that isn't what the Treaty of Paris said. Civil rights and political status.
Right.
Okay, anything else, Jesse? Or can I go back to Josh and...
And on the Josh thing, I'm on Josh's side here because he's the governor and he's elected 4 years. Now, if you don't like that, then you could just have some impeachment process or something. But I feel that maybe it wasn't the best thing. And, people would say, okay, I don't like my tax money going this way, that way. But my view on it is, if he says that he needed to go to the trip, then he needs to go,
Well, if he says he needs to go on the trip, he's going to go on the trip. I don't have to like it, though, Jesse.
I know you don't have to like it, but I'm just saying, Trump goes on his golf trips,
Yeah, I don't have to like that either.
Yeah, exactly. So, but so I'm just saying that, people get caught up on how bad Gov Guam is. Gov Guam is just as bad as the United States government, the federal government.
Well, congratulations, Jesse. You ran it right up to the break. So I'm going to have to, this has been a lot of fun, but we're going to have to break it off now. But I'll look forward to your call tomorrow, okay?
Okay, thanks.
All right.
When your family needs medical care, how often do you find the need to visit multiple clinics? When a child has a serious ailment, do you find yourself meeting a medical provider only to learn you must go somewhere else for testing? At the FHP Health Center, you can find multiple specialties and testing services under one roof. And if your family needs urgent care, FHP is there for you with convenient weekday, evening, and weekend hours. Voted the island's best clinic in Pika's Best 2 years in a row. FHP, our island, your clinic. Learn more at FHPGuam.com. The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
A young person under 30 posts on social media that they want to start a business and hire a couple of workers. I'm Jerry Roberts, and at 7:20 a.m. on The Ray Gibson Show, we'll offer some advice on what that new entrepreneur might want to be thinking about.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at GuamTraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Here's another Mezcla's featured special for July. Kahlua pork and cabbage. Slow roasted, smoke-laced pork, shredded and sautéed with onions and cabbage, served with steamed rice and lomi-lomi salmon. Try it today. Available in Agana and in Tumon at the Grand Plaza Hotel. For reservations, please call 969-2652.
The seventh inning stretch. Okay, so I've got Jimmy online. Jimmy, I'm going to finish up with Moylan versus Tenorio, and then I'll get to you right away, okay? So I think I've made my point pretty well as far as Jim Moylan's bill and Josh Tenorio's not dislike for it, but disdain for it, because if he's an elected official, he ought to be able to do pretty much whatever he wants to, and if you don't like it, run for governor yourself. Now, as I was saying, Moylan introduced this bill, and if you want everybody to know that you really don't know what you're doing when you're drafting a bill, make sure you put a section at the end of the bill that says this act shall be effective on adoption, because anybody who reads your bill will say, not necessary, Jim. That's the law of Guam, Title I, general provisions. And then put a severability clause in there. That's just another waste of ink. So leave those things out of your bill, and people will tend to take I will tend to take your bills more seriously as being drafted by a skilled craftsman. Now, here's where we get to the second item on the card here concerning Jim Moylan's bill. If I can find the card. Yeah, I had National Guard versus kids, Josh Tenorio versus Jim Moylan, and then Jim versus them. And I'm looking at page 5 of Jim Moylan's bill down at the bottom. And the convention in drafting bills is this: if you're going to take something out of the law, that is, repeal a provision of law, you run a strike through it. And if you're going to add something to the law, you underline the language that you're adding. So I'm looking at a sentence that read this way: if the employee does not submit a statement of account as authorized pursuant to section blah, 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 then he shall not be paid money in excess of the advance per diem. That's the existing law. Jim changed it like this. He took the word he and he put a T and a Y. He put a T in front of the he and a Y behind it, so that it now reads, if the employee does not submit a statement of account, then they shall not be paid any money in excess of advance per diem. Did you get that, Real Joe Cruz? So he changed he to they. It got to be politically correct, right? Now, I mentioned Title I of the Guam Code Annotated, and there's a section in there dealing with general provisions. And if you look at if you look at 1 GCA section 714, when any reference is made in this code to any other, I'm going to go on to 715. Words used in this code in the present tense include the future as well as the present. That's subsection A. Subsection C, the singular number includes the plural and the plural the singular. The word person includes a corporation, firm, association, organization, etc. Now here's the biggie. Words used in the masculine gender include the feminine and the neuter. So if a statute uses the word he, then it means she and it, as the context requires. And that section has been in the law ever since. That wasn't good enough for Jim, though, because Jim had to change the sentence that reads, employee does not submit a statement of account, then not he shall not be paid, it's they shall not be paid. So he does exactly what I rant and rave about on this program every day. He's being politically correct. He's using they instead of he, as though we don't know how many of them there are that are going to do this. So, good bill, Jim. Sloppy draftsmanship. Okay, let's see what Francis has to say for today. Good afternoon, Francis.
Good afternoon, Senor. Respeito para algo.
Tatid Manuel, Gaston.
We didn't catch the I was very interested in some clarification. I heard you talking about the Lieutenant Governor Josh Tenori going to the UN building for his reason for going there. That's claro.
He went there to testify before the 4th Committee of the United Nations to basically tell them what a horrible country the United States is, and asking them to put pressure on the United States to, quote, decolonize Guam.
For reals?
That's what he did.
Man, I'm not even gonna entertain that. But then again, I'm glad that you clarified that, because you still got people over there, and from my understanding, the first 5 years there, I don't care if you're your governor or lieutenant governor, but you have to be cleared by council and then an appointment to be placed on the calendar for your appearance. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, well, he went to this committee, and he testified in front of it. He was our representative to the UN committee, 4th Committee.
He represented us?
That's what he was doing.
Man, did you get any... Did you get any message or any information that he was going there?
I did, and of course he didn't. I don't think he seeks my approval, because probably if I told him I didn't like it, he'd give me 2 choices: One of which would be, well, I should run for governor myself then.
Well, what I was listening 3, 4 o'clock in the morning a couple of days ago when a good man from Texas said he believes in this simplistic solution for a very complicated problems. Wouldn't that apply to Guam? But then again, I'm worried because people here have never been really notified of any of the movements that he's making. So what I wanted to know was is the governor all in for plebiscite and independence, and the lieutenant governor and all the 15 senators? Because right now I've been trying to get some information, and so far I haven't received any information that any of them are supporting the independence movement.
Lou, the governor is, Jesse. The governor is. And I read this a couple of times on the program here. That she was quoted that time they had the big meeting with all the activists at the governor's office. This is what she said. We get our political status in order and we vote on what we want to be so we can have more control over our destiny here, and so we can have more control over our lands. So we can go to the United Nations and negotiate with the United States. And so we can be at the table, and when these things are considered, are being negotiated. So she says she wants to negotiate with the United States. The only way you can do that is if you're independent. So she's all in for independence. And I started on Josh's speech to the to the Fourth Committee. I haven't been able to finish it, but I will. I'm going to stay with it until I do.
All right. Is this in the General Assembly a meeting?
No, it's the Fourth Committee. It's the Special Committee on Decolonization. I have the
Would that fall under the Social Committee on Human Rights, or because all these committees that have been formed over there is just completely confusing, you know?
Yeah, well, it's also called the Committee on 24. So Josh and many of the Guam exit folks here on the island think that they're going to get a really fair shake from this Committee on 24, better than they'll get from the United States. And here are some of the members of the Committee on 24. China, Cuba, Iran, Russia, Syria, and Venezuela. Well, that's a good place to go and plead your case, right?
Mexico. You know what? I got a lot more to say, but I'm gonna let you finish up, and we're all listening. We're all coming back, and we're listening. We're catching up with you.
Okay.
Thank you, Shinod.
Okay. Good talking to you, Francis. Thanks for calling.
Likewise.
So I'm looking at, I'm going to take a minute here to cruise through Facebook for a second. I noticed I got another call coming in here. See what I can do before... Let's see, Nate horned in, and Ishmael Velez, and Donna Mila Taitano, and one of the Toms, Tom Van Engen's here, Joe Cruz. Joe Cruz, how about every time they fly off island, we give Bob his share back? Yeah, I'd get my share back pretty quick, wouldn't I? Oh, it's Jimmy. Okay, I better take Jimmy then. I don't want to keep Jimmy waiting there. Good afternoon, Jimmy.
Jimmy? Oh, howdy.
Hey, we got both the Jimmys today.
Well, not now.
Oh, okay. Only one Jimmy?
That's okay.
As usual, usually one Jimmy is more than enough, but go ahead, Jimmy.
I heard someone taking my name in vain, calling me schizoid. But anyway, not paying attention to that.
Okay, Jimmy.
I have, 3 things. Number 1 is a serious question. Number 2 and 3 are just jokes, like Gov. But anyway, is it okay to ask a serious question?
Go right ahead, Jimmy. I'll give you a serious answer.
Oh, I don't want it serious. It only has to be factual.
I'll give you a humorous answer.
Well, hopefully, you'll give me a helpful answer.
Okay.
As you have in the past. But anyway, I would like to watch you, not on YouTube. Okay, YouTube is okay, but not on that Facebook. I don't trust Facebook, and I'm not the only one. They had to pay a big fine in Europe. So I usually don't have Wi-Fi. But if I ever did have Wi-Fi, could I just see you on a plain old website where I don't have to log into Facebook or anything else owned by Mark Zuckerberg?
You can go to YouTube.
Yeah, and where is that? I've got my pen.
Yeah, Bob Klitzkie, YouTube.
So go to YouTube and search Bob Klitzkie.
That's it. And prepare yourself for some really good viewing, Jimmy.
But you have no straight website.
I do not. Yeah, I do. What's it? What is it? It's
that was designed, what, 1992?
From bob.blogspot.com. Yeah, I got my own website, but the only thing you're going to find there is stuff that I whacked out on my nasty letter machine at home. It doesn't have any graphics or videos or anything. It's just stuff that I've written. But it's very good reading, Jimmy, needless to say.
Well, could you... sorry. Gotta get... Only got 2 arms, so... what was the web address?
From Bob.blogspot.
FROM?
Yeah, FROM, from Bob.
Not form.
No, from Bob. Yeah. .blogspot.com.
Slash?
No slashes.
From Bob Blogspot?
From Bob dot blogspot .com. Okay?
From Bob Blogspot.com?
From Bob dot blogspot.com.
Okay.
You got it?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I better get back to my international radio listening audience here, Jimmy.
The joke?
Let's hold off on the joke until tomorrow, okay?
Coward.
Yeah, I am.
No, these were relevant jokes.
Let's save it till tomorrow, Jimmy.
Anyway, okay.
Thanks a lot, Jimmy. Good talking to you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, so you opened the Jimmy channel. Yep. Okay, I'm just going to cruise through Facebook here since Jimmy doesn't get to see Facebook. This will be his only taste of it. Got Rico, let's see, Rico and Tom Van Engen and Joe Cruz, but this isn't you, real Joe Cruz. This is another Joe Cruz. And Ishmael Velez, treason is defined as working against the interest of your nation. Since the United States is the nation and the lieutenant governor went to the UN to work against the interests of the United States by asking foreign nations to stand against the United States on behalf of Guam, wouldn't this be considered treasonous? No, I don't think so, Ishmael. And as usual, when I'm asked questions about the Constitution, I make it a habit to see what the Constitution actually says. And let's see what it says here. This is Article 3, Section 3. Treason against the United States shall consist only in levying war against them or in adhering to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort. No person shall be convicted of treason unless on the testimony of 2 witnesses to the same overt act or confession in open court. Congress shall have the power to declare the punishment of treason, but no attainder of treason shall work corruption of the blood or forfeiture except during the life of the person attainted. In other words, treason is to levy war against the United States or give aid and comfort to the enemies of the United States. So all of those words, of course, are subject to a lot of definitions, but enemy would be a country with which you are at war. So I don't think that Josh going to the 4th Committee and shooting off his mouth, as much as distasteful as I find it, I don't think it's treason. But interesting question anyhow. Okay, so we're coming up here on the home stretch.
Hafaday, this is Congressman Nicholas. Our office is currently visiting our villages, providing contact information for our office, and taking any inquiries we may be of service with. All vehicles and staff are appropriately identified for your safety. Please feel free to let our constituent outreach team know how we can be of service to you, and thank you for your kindness.
This ad was paid for with official funds from the office of Congressman Michael F.Q. San Nicolas.
Weekday shopping just got exciting. Join the Agania Shopping Center's Shop and Win on Weekdays promo. Shop or dine at any ASC store or restaurant on weekdays from now till October 31st. Show your receipt at the ASC booth and win instantly. Every $20 spent gets you an entry form to win big at the monthly draws, including round-trip tickets to Manila, $500 ASC gift certificates, and more. See posters and print ads for more. Special thanks to Sky Zone, Fun and Mall Riders, Vince Jewelers, and Wendy's.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
So here we are, call to the post, Kentucky Derby, as you were Churchill Downs, Louisville, Kentucky. That means that we've got about 8 more minutes to wrap up another exciting, informational, informative, educational episode of Tall Tales. But we'll be back tomorrow at 1700, as you were 1600, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So make sure you're here. So I just disposed of Ishmael's question about treason, and let's see what else I've got here on the Facebook. Ishmael says, to paraphrase Mr. Klitzkie, Lieutenant Governor is trying to say, quote, when I want to hear your opinion, I will remove the duct tape off your mouth myself. Yeah. Until then, shut your pie hole. Yeah, you got it, Ishmael. That's exactly what he said. Exactly. And let's see, we got the other Joe Cruz, who says, I'm not Bob, but if I was, I'd smoke something to help me forget about traveling. Yeah, okay. And then Chris chips in. Close the gates of all military facilities on Guam and the military departs Guam ASAP. Lay off all federal government employees. No more military personnel paying overinflated rent prices. Everyone is happy. No buildup. Yeah, I guess so. Another Joe Cruz. Maybe Bob thinks hot dogs still cost a nickel. I kind of like the good old days, but I think the cheapest hot dog I can ever remember was about a quarter. Yeah, which is pretty good compared to nowadays, right? I can remember when a telephone call cost a nickel. Yeah, that's when people didn't carry telephones around in their pockets.
That's before people said, I'm going to drop a dime.
Yeah, drop the dime on. Yeah, I
Drop a
remember
dime
when.
on you.
Yeah, I remember when payphones went from a nickel to a dime. Gross inflation. He thought it was going to be the end of the world. Okay, then Chris chips in again and says, "Ask the 100,000 plus that lost jobs in 1992 in the Philippines when those bases closed." Yeah. Nate horns in and says, "Checking out. Good night, all." I guess Nate's got to hit the sack early. He must get up really early in the morning. And another Joe Cruz says, "Free Guam." Yeah. And Pierre comes around and says, "Robert Underwood is the biggest insider. He would not have become a millionaire without having all the benefits he got from the Turning Point USA." I don't know what the Turning Point USA is. Pierre Tarine says, "Jesse Limtiaco, if you want 2 senators and a representative with full rights, you just need to apply for statehood." Ishmael says, "Life, freedom, and the pursuit of happiness. Those are afforded under U.S. citizenship. These are afforded to Guam. No single person is owned by another in the island. That is called freedom." Pierre says, "Amen to that, Ishmael." Jesse comes back with, "So you hold people hostage by threatening job loss. You hold people hostage by threatening job loss." I'm always interested in the rhetoric that the Guam Exit folks use. Hold people hostage. And then we saw a couple senators the other day talking about what was going on at Anderson as an atrocity. So, if I were walking across the room with a glass of water in my hand and it spilled, I would refer to it as a huge flood as that water poured out on the floor. Jesse Limpiaco says, "Nope, Puerto Rico did that and Congress didn't do anything." I don't know what he means by that. Apparently, Mitch McConnell doesn't want PR to become a state because they get 2 senators, 2 seats in the Senate, and it would definitely be Democrats. Yeah, and they get 4 members of the House, and they'd be Democrats. And if I've explained that once, I've explained it 1,000 times. That when states come in, they come in pairs. A Republican Hawaii had to come in with a Democrat Alaska. Otherwise, neither one of them would have come in. It's kind of like the prisoner's dilemma all over again. Jesse Limtiaco, "It's not called freedom when you hang that when you hang that option over somebody's head." No, Jesse, it's you do the Humpty Dumpty. Humpty Dumpty said, "Every word I use means just what I want it to mean, nothing more and nothing less." Okay, so that's it for another episode of Tall Tales. Make sure you come back tomorrow because I didn't get to this, and these are pretty interesting. Josh Tenorio versus Guamocracy. Josh actually struck a blow against Guamocracy. I don't know how the governor, being pro-independence, is going to take that. And then we've got the Irredentists versus Chatverus. No, it's not Chatverus, it's Chatfield, right? I always get that one wrong. So make sure you're here tomorrow for those really interesting items on the card. So wrapping it up here, the strains of Ravel's Bolero, seeing the smiling face of the real Joe Cruz through the window. Real Joe is happy because he's going to get to go home and relax in the comfort and privacy of his own home. See you all tomorrow.